Keir Starmer has ignited a political firestorm with his recent remarks on the grooming gang scandal, suggesting that those demanding an inquiry are influenced by far-right misinformation. These comments, delivered during a speech on NHS reform in the South East, have sparked fierce backlash across the political spectrum. Nigel Farage, never one to shy away from controversy, responded with a blistering tirade on GB News, accusing Starmer of silencing valid concerns and refusing to address one of the most troubling crises in modern British history. Farage didn't hold back. On air, he condemned Starmer for deflecting from calls for transparency, labelling the Labour leader's remarks as gaslighting the public. He lambasted Starmer for attempting to equate those seeking justice for victims with extremist ideologies. Farage's criticism extended beyond Labour, pointing out that previous Conservative governments also failed to adequately address the issue. But he wasn't just venting frustration. He vowed action, promising to fund an independent inquiry if Labour refuses to hold one.
Talk grooming gangs, and let's have a look. When Keir Starmer was asked whether we needed to have a full national inquiry, let's see what Keir Starmer had to say.
It is something about the nature of our politics, because once we lose the anchor that truth matters in the robust debate we must have, then we're on a very slippery slope. And when politicians, and I mean politicians, who sat in government for many years, are casual about honesty, decency, truth and the rule of law, calling for inquiries because they want to jump on a bandwagon of the far right.
Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. It's all the far right. Wanting to know the truth means you're part of the far right. Now, tomorrow, Kemi Badenoch, the Conservative leader, she'll be asking in the House of Commons, she'll be putting an amendment down, effectively saying there needs to be a full public inquiry. Her difficulty, of course, is that the Conservative government, when they were faced with this, didn't have an inquiry. There was one, but it was a whitewash, frankly, because it only looked at what had happened in 6 towns and cities as opposed to the 50 that we know about now. And grooming was just but a part of it. What we need here is an inquiry that is not a shotgun that deals with all of the problems that young people can face, and that can be through the church or elsewhere. We know about these things. We need a rifle that deals with what I believe was outright racist behaviour against young white girls who some, mercifully few, but some in the Pakistani community simply thought were trash. I have said that if the government don't give us a full review, that I will raise the money and put the money towards an independent inquiry, and I mean it. It was also very interesting that the Times leader today said, look, there has to be, the public demands that we get the full truth, because it feels like through the police, through social services, through political parties, we've not been told the truth for fear it might stoke racist division, the irony being that the crimes themselves were very racist in intent.
This pledge has electrified public discourse. Within hours, social media exploded with hashtags like Farage Inquiry and Justice for Victims, as citizens across the country expressed support for his bold stance. Many feel that previous inquiries were too limited in scope, investigating incidents in only a handful of towns when evidence suggests the problem was far more widespread. Farage emphasised this point in his speech, arguing that earlier efforts amounted to whitewashes that left victims without the justice they deserve. We don't need another shotgun approach that lumps this issue in with unrelated matters, Farage declared. We need a targeted investigation, a rifle aimed squarely at the truth of what happened and why it was allowed to continue for so long. Farage's remarks have struck a chord with many who feel abandoned by the political establishment. The grooming gang scandal has long been a source of public outrage, with successive governments accused of turning a blind eye to the crimes and the systemic failures that enabled them. For years, victims and their families have demanded accountability, only to be met with half measures and deflections. Farage's call for an independent inquiry represents, for some, the first real promise of action. Meanwhile, Keir Starmer remains defiant. In his speech, Starmer framed his critics as amplifiers of dangerous misinformation, accusing them of stoking divisions rather than seeking justice for victims. He insisted that Labour's focus is on protecting victims and addressing systemic failures, but his refusal to commit to a new inquiry has only fueled the controversy. Starmer's remarks were intended to shift attention away from the issue, but they've instead intensified public scrutiny of his leadership. The backlash against Starmer has been amplified by high-profile figures like Elon Musk, who accused the Labour leader of complicity in failing to address grooming gangs. Musk's incendiary claims, shared with his millions of followers on social media, have added an international dimension to the scandal. Downing Street dismissed Musk's comments as inflammatory and baseless, but the damage was already done. Musk's intervention has drawn global attention to the UK's handling of this issue, forcing Starmer and his team into damage control mode. Farage seized on Musk's remarks as further evidence of growing discontent with the political establishment. On GB News, he pointed to Musk's criticism as a sign that the issue has reached a tipping point. "Even Elon Musk can see what's going on here," Farage said. "The public is waking up to the fact that our leaders are more interested in protecting their reputations than delivering justice." Adding to the pressure, Kemi Badenoch, the Conservative leader, announced plans to propose a parliamentary amendment calling for a full public inquiry. Badenoch emphasised that this is a matter of justice, not politics, stating, "The victims of these horrific crimes deserve answers, and we cannot allow political agendas to stand in the way of transparency." However, Badenoch's position has also drawn criticism. Many argue that the Conservatives had ample opportunity to address the grooming gangs crisis during their time in power, but failed to do so. Farage didn't shy away from calling out this hypocrisy, pointing to the Conservative government's track record of avoiding the issue. He noted that the previous inquiry was far too narrow and failed to investigate the full scale of the problem. Public anger over the handling of the grooming gang scandal has reached a boiling point. Across the country, grassroots campaigns are demanding action, with many rallying behind Farage's call for an independent inquiry. Crowdfunding efforts to support the initiative have already gained significant traction, with thousands of donors pledging their support. For many, this is a long overdue opportunity to hold the political establishment accountable. As the scandal continues to unfold, the economic backdrop adds another layer of complexity. Labour is facing mounting challenges as government borrowing costs reach their highest levels since 1998. The sharp rise in interest rates and bond yields threatens to derail Chancellor Rachel Reeves's fiscal plans, leaving the Treasury with limited room to manoeuvre. Critics argue that Labour's reluctance to commit to an inquiry may be influenced by financial concerns, as a comprehensive investigation would likely come with a hefty price tag. Despite these challenges, Farage remains undeterred. His pledge to fund an independent inquiry has galvanised his supporters and put Labour on the defensive. The grassroots momentum behind his campaign is being seen as a direct challenge to Starmer's leadership, raising questions about his ability to address issues that resonate so deeply with the public. The controversy has also highlighted broader concerns about free speech and the role of the media in shaping public discourse. Many see Starmer's comments as emblematic of a growing trend to label dissenting voices as extremists, a tactic that critics argue stifles debate and undermines democracy. Farage, ever the populist, has positioned himself as a champion of those who feel silenced by the political establishment. As the debate rages on, its implications for Starmer's leadership are becoming increasingly clear. With public trust in politicians at an all-time low, his handling of this issue could have far-reaching consequences. Some within Labour fear that the backlash could alienate key constituencies, particularly in the north, where the grooming gangs crisis has left deep scars. Nigel Farage, meanwhile, shows no signs of backing down. His campaign for an independent inquiry has transformed him into a lightning rod for public discontent, reigniting a debate that Labour was desperate to avoid. Whether his efforts will lead to concrete action remains to be seen, but one thing is certain: this scandal has reshaped the political landscape. As this explosive story continues to unfold, one question looms large. Will Keir Starmer's refusal to engage with calls for an inquiry prove to be a critical misstep, or will he manage to weather the storm? And can Nigel Farage's promise to uncover the truth force the political establishment to confront the uncomfortable realities it has long sought to avoid? Stay tuned, this saga is far from over. If you want more updates on this dramatic showdown, hit that like button, subscribe, and let us know your thoughts in the comments below.